It's May 1st, 2021, Ward Green here. It's just around supper time. I've already eaten though. And I just wanted to touch base on a few things related to the time of the memorial of Christ's death, which is around this time of year every year. And in the Eastern Orthodox Church, it's going to be Easter Sunday is tomorrow, I believe. But we know that it was celebrated by some people April 27th. And, no, wait a minute. March 27th. That's right. March 27th. That's right. That which is, so there's quite a difference in the dating. How can that be March 27th? Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, it's hard to reconcile the difference because it doesn't seem like exactly a lunar month between the two. But whatever it is, it's there's 4 days to the end of March to get to March 31st, and then you've got 30 days of April. That's 30 plus 4 is 34, and 2 is 36 days. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't quite. Oh, I know why. Yes, because it has to happen on the Sunday, so it's based on the weeks, not on the lunar months. It's not based on lunar months only. It's based on the nearest Sunday to the lunar months, to Nisan 14 or whatever in the calendar that you're using. Anyway, so, but I want to show something that was a repair that I did here. I just want to show this. This is a clamp. It's normally just a plastic white clamp that you see down here. Where is it? Yeah, I'm getting there. There it is. So normally, there we go. There's a plastic clamp that holds the front of this HEPA filter door. This is a HEPA filter. This door on the front of this HEPA filter. Here it is. There's the HEPA filter name and everything, but it's just right here. This clamp was broken right here, so I had to repair it. Or I didn't have to repair it because it was still functioning, but part of it, I'm trying to get my face and the clamp in the same picture. Part of the the bottom of this corner, the bottom corner broke of this plastic. This white. This is white plastic. You can see the white plastic. I glued a piece onto it, a piece of maple, onto that white plastic. And I tried to include, at the front of this maple, I tried to include the broken piece of plastic in the glue up, which was done using a flexible glue, which is called Goop. Very strong, but it needs surface area to be at its best. So because the piece that broke wasn't wide, didn't have a width to it very much, only maybe a 1/4 inch at the most, this gluing still allowed that piece that was broken to move a little bit after it was clamped. It wasn't able to be, I didn't have it glued in such a way that that piece was completely put back into its original position. It was actually, there was a tiny crack that you could see in that piece that broke. You could see a little bit of a crack. So what I did was then I also added an additional piece of, an L-shaped piece of maple. You can see that piece. It's an L, right? It's an L, like that. And that piece was glued, oops, my finger's moving the wrong way because I can't keep track of which way is which on these mirror image camera displays. So there, that is an L shape, and it was used to hold the front of this clip in position so that it couldn't break out anymore, or so that if that piece of plastic did move, it would hit this piece of wood. So this would hold and strengthen that clip. Now, after this piece was glued on, this piece had not been clamped. Well, it didn't go all the way to the bottom. That was one problem. That's where the piece broke, was at the bottom. So I didn't want this piece to go all the way to the bottom for some reason. Jehovah didn't let me do it that way. Anyway, I didn't do it that way. And then what happened was this piece still had a crack. The plastic still had a crack that it was still possible for that plastic piece to have a crack opening up when you. It didn't matter whether it was clamped or not. There was a crack opening up, and I could squeeze it this way, and I could see that crack move a little bit. There was a little bit of an opening still, so I wanted to close that crack up just to be sure that then I can monitor whether it's changing. If I see the crack open, I know if I can close up the crack for now, then I'll know that if it stays closed, then I'll know that everything is functioning. So I added a third piece in a glue up, all glued using Goop, which is very strong but flexible. This Goop was glued to the bottom of this plastic clip and a piece of maple that I had to custom cut at this end. Well, I had to custom cut it on all sides, but I wanted it to be the right length, so I could, a little shorter than this plastic, so I could clamp onto the plastic, and the maple wouldn't be stopping the clamp from pushing against the plastic, which is what I wanted it to clamp against. And then I used these. No, I don't have the clamps. I don't have the clamps with me. I used soft padded quick release clamps that are made of steel, but their pads are made of very soft material, so that they don't. So you can apply a moderate amount of clamping pressure fairly easily. But now, so let's just look at what happened. I want to show you. Also, look at the front. Look at this. Now, this is interesting. It had to fit well at this corner. I had to make it thick enough and strong enough, so it would be strong enough, long enough this way, so that it would be strong enough, so that it could provide clamping pressure at the bottom of this broken piece of plastic. But now let's open it up. Let's open this up. I'm just going to open it so it comes from the back. We just pull from the back, I think. Is that right? Yes. There. I'm being very gentle because it's less than a day old too. And this glue takes 24 hours to really reach full strength. But now I just gently open it. I wasn't trying to hide it from you. But let's see. Inside, yeah, I did a fourth glue up here. I did another thing. I decided that as long as this piece of metal, sheet metal that I glued inside, as long as that was using Goop again, as long as that piece of sheet metal was not too thick, then it would not prevent the closing of this hinge. Could still go around the grabbing part of this clasp, of this clamp, and there's a tongue that this clamp grabs onto, and then you tighten it. Now, if the metal that I added to the inside here were too thick, it would prevent the closure. It would prevent it from being able to go on. So, because it would obstruct the. But it turned out there was room there to add this piece of sheet metal, galvanized sheet metal, glued on with Goop, and I clamped it this way, front to back, till it dried. That took a day. This piece at the front here, or these two pieces, the little piece didn't work, and then I glued the other piece on that. Each of those possibly took a day because it takes a day to dry. So it's a several day job here, but because I didn't, I'm not sure, well, unless I added the sheet metal at the same time as I added this, I might have done that the same day. Not sure. I didn't try to keep track of it, but it's not that important. And then what happened was, look at the inside now of the join. See, we want to have a good fit on the bottom of this. There we go. so there's a glue line that is not very prominent here because it's a fairly good fit. But at the front, I can't see because of the record display indicator. There. At the front, I had to custom fit. It's a curved front edge on this clasp, on this clamp. There's a curved front edge. I had to cut the wood to fit around it in a curve shape. So you can see that probably. Or possibly you can see that there's the goop squeezing out, but there's a curved shape of a cut that fits almost perfectly around that plastic. And the reason I wanted that was because when I clamped this bottom piece, I wanted to clamp it from front and to the back of the plastic here and push it back against the plastic. So I squeezed that way with a clamp. One clamp, it only took one clamp to do that. But if it hadn't been curved at the front, with the wooden part contoured to exactly fit the curved part of the plastic, then this part could have slipped off the front, or it could have caused the plastic broken piece to misalign with the piece it was mating against. When I was clamping it, it was already misaligned slightly. It just happened that the brake wasn't, I think the brake was not in a perfectly perpendicular direction, so every time I clamped it, it tended to create an offset. Where you can, maybe I can show you. So the plastic piece is just slightly higher. The piece that broke is slightly further forward here than the piece it was attached to here. It's just a slight difference in height. Yeah, I think you can see that. I think you can see that. Yeah. So but it's, as long as that doesn't change in height, it doesn't move when I push it right now. There's no movement that I can see when I push it with my thumb. I don't see any change. And the crack is now closed. I can't see any gap. There used to be a gap there. So that's now closed. And then at the front, it just comes up like this. You just put it on, you hook it on at the front. You hook this front bit. There. You hook it over the front. So it just hooks. It hooks, so I want it to be able, it's hard to tell what I'm doing and to show the camera. Okay, at the same time. I hook it over the front. I don't want to break the thing. Okay, and then when I do it, it becomes clear there's a problem sometimes, because when I do it, there's the wood at the front here. This wood piece, it's banging against the front of the door, and so is this piece a little less of a problem. But this piece that I just glued on last, it's a very good, it seems to be a good addition. But now if I can get it, but it slightly interferes with, but as long as I can still get it on, which I can, it clamps. When it's not clamped, you can see at the top, if I can show it, there's a bit of an opening. See that that opens up at the top where my thumb is, and we want to clamp it like that. So when we put the clamp on, clamps it, so that's now shut. That's not, there's no way to, that's not going to come open. It's solid at the top here. There's a foam gasket. And so this repair, this goop is very, very long lasting because it's very flexible. And as long as it's not exposed to anything harmful like the sun or something, which it won't be down here in the basement, it works. So this repair, yeah, is like that. The other one below, it looks like a piece of plastic. It's normally supposed to be like that, but now it's this one. Looks different, but it still does the job just the same. So anyway, that was my learning experience of how to repair that. I tried to repair first things first, which was just to try to glue a piece of maple on the front. Then I added the L-shaped maple, and then I put the steel galvanized plate behind. Then I added the bottom L-shape contoured piece. So it turned out that it worked pretty well. It looks like it's going to work very well. So let's get some light. What do we got here? What can we do? That's better, I think. Yeah, I just wear this tube hat. Keeps my neck warm, which really solves a lot of issues with stiff neck in a cold house. Whoops. We were gone long enough. It triggered my screen to turn off. Now, yeah, I just want to touch on something.
This corner?
I'm watching a video, but I'm not doing it now. This moment. Let's see. I wanted to see. Look at this. Here it talks about in 1 Peter 3. Baptism is mentioned here, and it says in verse 3:21 of 1 Peter. Well, in verse 20, first of all, it mentions Noah's Ark, and that the 8 souls, which was Noah and his family, were carried safely through the water in the ark. So, and that, it says, is a it's a corresponding event to baptism because in the next verse it says that which corresponds to this is also now saving you. So this corresponds to the ark and Noah being saved, namely baptism. In brackets, not the putting away of the filth of the flesh, but the request made to God for a good conscience. So baptism has to do with the request made to God for a good conscience. And then it says in the other version, the more recent translation, it says now saving you, baptism which corresponds to this is also now saving you, not by the in brackets, not by the removing of the filth of the flesh, similar translation, but by the request to God for a good conscience. Then it says through the resurrection, in both translations, through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's saving through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And in the illustration of the ark was raised up above the water. So in the baptism, the person is put under the water and then raised up above the water. And in the resurrection, Jesus is raised up. So the illustration is about raising up. That's the illustration of baptism. In this verse, it's evident. It's about raising up. It's not about submersion so much as raising up, although submersion is part of it. But in the ark was not submerged. We know that. It wasn't put under the water entirely, although it had been under the water because the waters were up above in the sky too before they came down. So the ark had been below the water and then it was raised up. So the idea of baptism has to do with raising up above water after being submerged in water. So that's important. That's important because it says through the resurrection. And it doesn't say, it specifically says not the putting away of the filth of the flesh. It says not that, but the request made to God for a good conscience, which is the raising up, the part that raises you up when you put faith in the resurrection. So at least that seems to be clearly what's implied from that verse, so from that scripture, that section. Of course, I mean, we can study more about it, but that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to mention one more thing which was about the memorial. That's a symbolic event where there's the taking of emblems on Memorial Day, or the day that it's Jesus said, as often as you do it. Let's look that up. As often as you do it. Now maybe I'll find it by looking for that. As often as you do. No. Let's see. What is that? As often. Yeah, there it is. Well, no, that's not what Jesus said, right? That's 1 Corinthians. As often as you eat this loaf and drink this cup. So it wasn't something Jesus said, but Jesus said, keep doing this. That's right. In remembrance of me. That's what Jesus said. Now, but then Paul writes in 1 Corinthians, as often as you eat this loaf and drink this cup, you keep proclaiming the death of the Lord. It doesn't say how often to do it. It just says as often. He doesn't specify how often. He doesn't say that specifically. But Jesus said, keep doing this. So let's look that up. Keep doing this. He said that these things, the loaf and the wine, in that case, meant his body and his blood. Of course, the bread meant his body, and the cup meant the new covenant by virtue of his blood. Well, that's 1 Corinthians. It says the cup meant the new covenant. Jesus in Luke 22:10 says, this means my body which is to be given in your behalf. That's the loaf. And then he said the cup means the new covenant by virtue of my blood. So he did say that as well. Jesus said it before Paul did, which is to be poured out in your behalf. So, but these were symbols, the loaf and the cup. They drank wine in those days. We don't necessarily have to drink wine these days, depending on whether we drink alcohol or not. It's a symbol. The bread is a symbol, so we can make matzah bread, which is what the Jews ate. Unleavened bread is a symbol of the body of Jesus, because it's not leavened, it's pure. But also the cup could be anything that you actually have on hand that you think would symbolize the blood of Christ, which traditionally people use wine, but if you don't drink, maybe you use something else. It's symbolic, so it's not really anything more than a symbol. So why would it be important? It's in terms of what it is. And then Jesus said, yes, right. What else did he say? Keep doing that. It was just to keep doing this in remembrance of me. Right. So I think, yeah, it's that's all. I think that's all I really wanted to mention. That was it. But for people who don't have access, if they're in some situation where they don't have bread or they don't have wine or whatever, they don't have the right materials, they can still perform a symbolic ceremony or of remembrance for Jesus at the time they deemed to be appropriate, in memory of his death, which was 1991 years ago, according to the best evidence that I've been able to find, and it looks very convincing that the crucifixion was in the year 30 of the Common Era, and I've written an article explaining in great detail, or significant detail. Certainly, it's an article of millions, 500 million characters long, which is probably 500,000 characters long, which is like a half a megabyte, which is, if there's 4 characters per word on average, that would be, or 5 characters per word would be 100,000 words. It's a fairly significant number of words talking about the date of crucifixion of Christ and the other dates in his life and how they relate to secular history. It's called Born and Raised Messiah, translated into other languages as well. So far it's translated into Spanish, Romanian, Russian, and Chinese Mandarin, simplified and traditional. So English, Spanish, Romanian, Russian, and the two Chinese, which is 6 if you include both Chinese. So far, it's a lot of work to do the translating, but I could certainly do. I'm capable of doing all the European languages, essentially all of them anyway, or a lot of them I should say. Estonian seems to work very well, but I'm not sure how practical it is to translate it into Estonian at this point, but it's possible. I mean, I know that there's a lot of them. Estonia is one that I didn't know I could do. But I was surprised I could do Russian. I was surprised I could do Chinese. It's because of the improved tools online. I'm the only one doing the work. It's just because of the improved quality of the tools online. The translating tools online, there's more than one engine besides Google. And there's a very good one, but it doesn't do every language, but it does a lot fewer languages than Google, but it does them translates much more accurately than Google. So at the present time, but Google's being improved all the time. The one I'm using is DeepL. DeepL it means deep learning, I think, and it's a learning engine, so as I'm doing the translation, it improves while I'm actually doing the translation. It learns from me. So it's quite, I didn't expect that. I wouldn't have needed it to learn anything from me. I could still have gotten it done almost as fast. But it's very encouraging that it does learn. It learns, and it learns rapidly. Like even in the same hour that I've been working, it's learned something from me, and it's done something more along the lines of what I'm looking for, so that I don't have to do as much work. But in terms of getting an accurate translation. So anyway, so that's all I wanted to say. I think now that there's a lot of work to do, and I think chronology is just one of my one of the things I care about, because without accurate chronology, I don't think we can really base, things on a foundation that's as solid. If we don't have any evidence for our chronology, so it's very important. And the article is online on willofjehovah.com. And I mean, I don't think anybody else has exactly the same chronology as I do on my website. But anyone's welcome to use my chronology. It's just that it goes all the way back to Adam, and I don't think anybody else has exactly the same. Nobody else as an organization seems to have exactly the same chronology, unless they've chosen to adopt it for their own chronology. They don't have the same chronology all the way from Adam right to the present day now, or even Adam to Jesus, which is the most ancient part of that chronology. So it's good to I just don't like to be putting my water source completely in the public square for everybody to use. I have to keep a good deal of my life private, because that's in accord with that principle. It's in Proverbs. Let your water source, maybe I can look it up. Yes, it's Proverbs 5:18. Let your water source prove to be blessed. But 5:17, let them prove to be, should your springs, okay, it says in verse 15 of Proverbs 5, drink water out of your own cistern and tricklings out of the midst of your own well. Should your springs be scattered out of doors, your streams of water in the public squares themselves? That was verse 16. And verse 17, let them prove to be for you alone and not for strangers with you. Verse 18, let your water source prove to be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of your youth. But that's going into the next part. The water source, let your water source prove to be blessed. And let your springs be for you alone. Let them prove to be for you alone and not for strangers with you. So that's why it's not wise to share everything with the public. I love it, everybody, and especially all the faithful ones who are working so hard, sharing their love wherever they can, and that's what we do. We share what we can. And I want to thank you for watching. I want to do that, but I also want to say goodbye for now, and I'll see you again hopefully soon.